Alright everyone, welcome back to Gen Challenge 11 here, our premier challenge for the SoCal region here. Once again, this is Cornell, and we're joined by Regina Ang Lee here, and we are here to clear up the confusion that was this round one. And you mind explaining what happened in round one?
Yeah, so just part of it was one, we're sorry for the technical difficulties, and two, hey guys, this is a reminder for all of you, just make sure someone checks your team sheets, because here's the thing, when you're filling out your team sheets, what's going to happen is you're going to think, okay, cool, this is all fine, but you've been staring at your Pokemon, at your teams, at your moves for so long that you always want a fresh set of eyes. So here's my advice for you. You get a group of friends at a round table, you have someone check your team sheet, you pass it around, have someone check it again, and you keep doing that just to make sure that all of your bases are covered. Every now and then team sheet errors will occur, and so of course we have to call judges for that. So the way that last round works is that it did go to Brendan. So just like, this is your forewarning that hey, it's fine that it happens at locals because it's better there than at a regional or at a higher event, and sometimes it can't be helped. So we do apologize for the way that last round went, but hopefully we're gonna be able to have smooth sailing from here on out. But as always, check your team sheet, check it again, check it a third time, and then get it checked a fourth time, because you never know, someone might see something that goes like, hey, this feels weird to see on your team sheet. You're like, you're right, it is. So yes,
yeah, you always have to check your team sheets every time you go into a tournament or of any capacity. Honestly, you know, make sure the information matches on your Switch. So, like, my best advice I could give you anybody, because when I filled out a team sheet for fun, I was like looking at my Switch, making sure everything was correct, and that's pretty much the way I've done it. I'm pretty sure other people have different methods to do it, but that's probably my most recommended way to check your team sheets is to check your Switch information.
My most recommended way is to get a set of eyes for it, because you can do it that way, and I've still messed it up, right, Pex? So don't. Yeah, I was like, Pex is all sad about that.
Just
stuff,
no repetition. That's all. Like,
it happens, and the best we can do from it is move on. But again, I don't know if numbers were told though. On the bright side of things, we do have 42 people for a PC, which is just insane to me, and I love that. 42 people does mean 6 rounds. It does mean though that we miss out on top 16 CP, so we're still at a top 8 CP capacity, which is a little unfortunate for our players, because if you miscut, then, you know, playing for 6 rounds for nothing, oof. The important thing is at the end of the day, you have fun, hopefully.
Yeah, and hopefully we don't incur the frustrations that is playing Pokemon, whether it be untimely critical hits, untimely clinches, or just, you know, hopefully the best case scenario, just like a normal game plays out, because ranked ladder will drive people crazy. Oh
yeah, but hey, remember, at the end of the day, Pokemon is all about the friends you make along the way, which really is what the game is all about sometimes. And honestly, ranked ladder is best of one, and or I like to call it best of fun. That's where you bring your really, really fun strategies, guys. And by fun strategies, I mean, if any of you have ever played Pokemon Battle Revolution, they had the Masterclass on there. One of the strategies that they did for their doubles was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna bring a ghost type, and I'm gonna use Explosion with my other one. And I went, what is this? This is a video game. You're not supposed to do this to me. Which they did anyway, and it didn't really matter. So
I guess you could call it an exploitation, I guess.
It was just funny, because it was like, I wasn't expecting it in a like actual Pokemon game like that. But our players are getting set up right now. I'm not familiar with their names. We are trying our best to pull people who might not be as well known as some of the people that you might see in the SoCal area, because there are a lot of very well known players that are here. But you know, they always get their time in the sun, and if things go well for them, you'll see them later on, either for later rounds or for top cut. I think most of the people that you would know already have their invites, like people like Gavin Michaels, Alberto Lara, Giovanni Costa. Those of you who are watching who might not have heard this, Riley Factura is here today too. So it's like a wild SoCal reunion from like way before the pre-times. Like it feels like back to normal, quote unquote. So
yeah, now we're gonna get set for our round 2 matchup between Ray Crawford and Junxi Zhu, if I said that correctly. Yes. And it looks like we're getting Junxi's perspective here. Junxi with Murkrow, Great Tusk, Fluttermane, Iron Bundle, Dragapult, and Shiyu. And for Ray, it's Torkoal, Jumpluff, Fluttermane, Great Tusk, Chien-Pao, and King Gambit. Something pretty familiar.
Yeah, I think the Torkoal jump bluff stuff is really fun. You know, weather is always just one of those archetypes that people love to have around. So being able to take advantage of that chlorophyll for that jump bluff, and having that Torkoal with the drought ability just out of the gate. What we really love is like if you're looking at this Dragapult like we are, it has a power herb on there and a power herb for what would be a Phantom Force. So power herb. You're not really an item that you normally see on something like a Dragapult.
Yeah, you know, you see Justin Tang already earlier in the public scene use a choice band. We've seen Life Orb from time to time. Focus, that's just another option. But Flower Herb is pretty interesting because I don't think too many people would expect the turn 1 Phantom Force to actually connect, which can catch some protectors by surprise.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be something to kind of look out for. Stuff like this is always kind of really fun tech, right? Pokemon that you are used to seeing, but having some new sort of like moves in there. And America kind of still sticking around, like despite the fact that like it was super dominant in Series 1. It's just sort of tapered off a little bit, but it's nice to see it back on a team. And so as we get into this match, we are going to be able to at least see exactly if that Power Herb Dragapult, which I'm hopefully going to be able to see right now.
Yeah, we're going to see this from Junxi's point of view, and Ray is going to start out with the King Gambit and the jump bluff. Junxi with Murkrow and Flutter Mane. Looks like an offensive lead for Junxi, while Ray has the flexibility to go Torkoal.
Yeah, so actually really interesting here because you've got two Pokemon that are the possibility to set up like sort of a speed control, right? Flutter Mane, obviously a really fast Pokemon, and then you've got the Murkrow with a Tailwind. Jump bluff without that Torkoal, also an interesting choice because there is no other sort of weather option on Junxi's side. So you have to kind of, oh sorry, there is that Sunny Day, my bad. So you could, ooh, not something you're gonna click once you see jump bluff though. Probably really there is a tech for stuff like the Pelipper that has just all of a sudden become everyone's favorite rain setter. But yeah, King Gambit also just a lot of offensive pressure.
Yeah, you know, it's already threatening to one-hit knockout on the Flutter Mane, barring any Focus Sash. Like, guaranteed with the Iron Head. Even if it's not Iron Head, Kowtow Glee's going to do a good amount of damage either way, but we're not going to see any switch shots. We're just going to see a Dazzling Gleam do a decent amount of damage to the Jump Bluff. Does reveal the Life Orb.
Yeah, Jump Bluff going for a Sleep Powder is going to be able to put the Murkrow to sleep. So the Murkrow deciding not to go ahead and use it was going for something like Brave Bird there. It's going to take that necessary sleep turn here as that Jump Bluff was able to land that Sleep Powder and Iron Head from that King Gambit connecting, knocking out of that Flutter Mane. So Junxi going to have to take a loss of that Flutter Mane on that turn 1. Not really have anything to show for it except a Sleeping Murkrow. I
would have to say that Junxi not going for the Tailwind there on the Murkrow shows me he knew that Torkoal was not switching in.
It still feels like something where you don't really want to sacrifice the fact that your Murkrow is going to be like falling asleep, right? Because now you just sort of like have a Pokemon that is not really doing much, and then your Pokemon next to it have to do a lot more work. Sure, you have the chance for that Murkrow to wake up right now, but you have to think to yourself like, what is it really going to offer in this matchup now?
Yeah, I mean, let's see what the Great Tusk can offer here. You know, it has that Rock Slide move, which we did see on the screen. It can't touch the jump bluff, maybe catch a Torkoal on a switch in, but I think you might be more worried about this King Gambit because if it's continuing to use moves like that Iron Head or that Kowtow Cleave soon, it's probably going to get out of hand if it's left unchecked.
Yeah, so it did see a lock into Terrasses here, but King Gambit gonna leave the field. Rage saying, I'm not too sure about that, but Torkoal finally making out here, showing itself as a great partner to that jump bluff, is gonna bring in the Sun, that drought ability, Sunlight turning harsh for 5 turns, gonna activate actually the photosynthesis on that Great Tusk to increase that attack. So kind of an interesting interaction there because you are gonna actually help out your opponent as we're gonna see the Terrastalizing going into that Great Tusk. So as a reminder, this Great Tusk has switched in, has its attack boosted because of that Torkoal switching it on the opposing trainer's side is Terrastalizing into Steel. That Torkoal is not going to be long for this battlefield as Jump Bluff actually goes for a Leaf Storm. That resistance now there thanks to that Steel Terrastalize. The special attack going down by 2 stages here. Murkrow staying asleep. Already took its necessary sleep turn last turn, so does have a chance to wake up now.
Wow.
Headlong Rush though into that Torkoal is an easy knockout there. That was a fantastic sort of turn for Junxi, especially after that first turn where that Torkoal went to sleep. Or sorry, where that Murkrow went to sleep.
You know, now that they've seen that move again, I think that Headlong Rush into the King Gambit style probably was safe because the only resistance or neutrality, in this case Jump Bluff, was already in play and there's no way you can switch in. So going for Headlong Rush into that slot was safe. And Torkoal now probably regretting giving that Great Tusk the attack multiplier.
Yeah, I think definitely something you're gonna have to think about in like that game too. Just how do you the fact that you have an opponent who has past Paradox Pokemon and that you have a Torkoal that brings the sun with it. Because here's the thing too, right? If you don't bring the Torkoal, then that Murkrow on Junxi side also has access to Sunny Day, so is going to be able to do that. King Gambit going to come back out onto the field here for Ray, but now knows that it's in a very precarious position, even with that attack drop on that Great Tusk.
Oh, you mean
because it used Headlong Rush.
Those are the defense drops.
Yeah, my bad.
It's like close combat, don't worry. It's like you take that risk with a high power move like a Headlong Rush. It may not lower your offenses, but lowering your defenses could put you vulnerable, especially now that you're neutral to do something like that Cat's Out Cleave. But again, this King Gambit probably needs to be a bit wary because I do not think Sucker Punch is anywhere near close to getting a knockout.
This Murkrow is trying its best to just land a hit on this jump bluff.
Well, either it's going to wake up this turn or wake up next turn, depending on how the fate of the cards play.
Yeah, what's really interesting to me is that it feels like this Murkrow isn't really one of those Pokemon that you're going to bring in subsequent matchups. Great Tusk going for Protect on this turn. Its Sucker Punch, though, from the King Gambit is going to fail thanks to that Protect. And now Murkrow still sleep the jump left, trying for that Sleep Powder into that protected spot. And now, is Murkrow finally going to wake up? Nope. Unfortunately, this Murkrow just taking a long nap is just like, I think my partners can go ahead and handle this match for me. And the Great Tusk, you know, at least able to avoid being put to sleep from that thanks to that Protect.
At the very least, Junxi's Murkrow will wake up this turn, but now it comes down to this question because he just protected, and he was right to avoid the Sucker Punch, but now you know that Sleep Power is heading your way, so now the Murkrow, is it too late to set up a Tailwind or set up something to make sure you knock out the Jump Bluff? Because I still don't know if Rock Slide, even with that attack multiplier, is enough to knock out the Jump Bluff.
It might be. I mean, I don't think Jump Bluff is exactly like the most bulky Pokemon out there, but on that same offhand, right, Murkrow isn't exactly the highest attacker Pokemon that you don't really look at Murkrow to clean up your games with attacks, so might be really interesting seeing two support Pokemon going at it for each other, but Murkrow is able to wake up and is able to use Quash, so Quash a fantastic choice here, able to make sure that Jump Bluff goes last here, as another Headlong Rush from that Great Tusk is able to land into that King Gambit, so hey, even if it gets put to sleep, it took care of that King Gambit, which is all that it really needed to do. Quash, one of those fantastic moves that like people love to use with series with Murkrow, but our Encore instead from that Jump Bluff, not a Sleep Powder like we were expecting.
No, and now this Great Tusk more likely has to switch out. Okay, Fluttermane comes in here, so Tailwind's still on the table. Let's see what this Fluttermane's multiplier is for this Photosynthesis. I think this might be special attack. It's actually going to be speed.
Yeah, so now that you know it's a fast Fluttermane, just Encoring the Great Tusk is such an interesting, it's just so funny because I was actually I think we were both expecting there a Sleep Powder just to try to negate the threat that Great Tusk might do. And also actually Ray does still have their Terastallizing on the table. Exactly,
so maybe this Fluttermane has a resistant Terastallization here, but again, going back to this Encore.
Oh no, but it is a Fairy Tera type.
Yeah, it's probably a most common one. Going back to the Encore, it's great that you're Encored into Headlong Rush, so Jump Bluff takes no damage. However, Fluttermane's still susceptible.
Yeah, and especially when you're looking at the team sheet for Junxi, there's any of the other moves, like really the only thing you probably would have Encored into it was probably a close combat because you're not that afraid for it. But Murkrow going for Quash one more time, this time into the Fluttermane, so that speed boost is completely ignored here, as Jump Bluff actually able to go for that Sleep Powder on this turn. So, you know, it's a sleep, it's Encored. This Great Tusk isn't doing much right now. It's gonna take the necessary sleep turn right now, though, and now that Fluttermane's gonna be like, well, might as well try to take some damage into it. Goes for the Shadow Ball, is gonna connect into that Great Tusk, and isn't enough to pick up that knockout.
Yeah, those defense drops, they actually did come back to bite Junxi there on that Great Tusk. Terastallization gone. Now it's down to Murkrow, and I think we saw an Iron Bundle. It is Iron Bundle, and it is the booster energy. No electric terrain needed, so Iron Bundle, I have to say, it's really sad that we don't see Pincurchin in this metagame.
Pincurchin is one of those Pokemon that is always just trying its best to be put on a team somewhere every now and then, right? Those are for the late night team buildings where you're just like, but what if I put Pincurchin? And we go, okay, but what if we don't? But yeah, one day, maybe one day.
Maybe one day. Until then, most of the Quark-Strike Pokemon have to use the booster energy to get their boost multiplier, and we saw Iron Bundles is a speed. However, without Quash, you are understanding that Jump Bluff, and Sleep Powder I actually think Ray can still come back and win this game if Sleep Powder lands on his Iron Bundle. Yeah,
here's the thing. You thought you were afraid of a Mungus Spore? No. It's Jump Bluff Sleep Powder that we're looking out for, and Ray is finally going to be able to use his Terastallized is going into that Jump Bluff spot. Is going to be a Ghost type on there. So saying, hey, It's fine. Don't worry about the Brave Bird. It won't do much anymore. And Murkrow finally able to go for that Tailwind. Gonna give the speed control for Junxi, which actually might matter here in this late game. Didn't quite matter as much earlier on, but that Icy Wind from Iron Bundle is gonna make sure that the speed advantage is still firmly on Junxi's side, as both Pokemon will have their
this is dangerous.
Iron Bundle able to eat up that Leaf Storm thanks to that special attack drop from earlier as well, but Shadow Ball going into that Iron Bundle as well from Fluttermane is able to pick up that knockout there. Ooh. And it's just gonna be this Murkrow versus these other two Pokemon.
Sun's gone though, so the speed multiplier is gone, and this Fluttermane for Ray is not booster energy. However, yeah, there he goes. Junxi realizes the threat. That's Fluttermane because there's a jump plus that -4 special attack against the Leaf Storm drops. It has to knock out the Fluttermane to stand a chance to win. If a Sleep Powder lands, this might be over.
Yeah, I think it's still a tough call. I think it's still going to be tough for Junxi no matter what, right? Because if you're looking at it, this Murkrow, like I said, it's not really a Pokemon that you're going to use as your game closer, especially because Brave Bird will do recoil damage too as well. I don't think you're going to be landing that much damage on a Fluttermane with that, especially because you don't think to yourself, okay, I'm going to use Murkrow to clean up an end game, right? And Jump Bluff here, like you said, the Leaf Storm there, it's only
oh, here's the Brave Bird.
Yeah. It actually picked up the knockout. That's kind of wild. I was not expecting that.
Yeah, Murkrow's a very high, decent attack stat. You know, I think it's like 90 if I last checked. Yeah, here's another Leaf Storm. Not going to do a lot of damage. Resisted. Fluttermane's defense points are its weak point, and that's why I was thinking if the Brave Bird connects onto the Fluttermane, the game is likely swung in Junxi's favor. We see another one come out into this jump up. That's a knockout. Who said Murkrow can't just win the game?
Yeah, I was not expecting that, especially because like the here too for Ray, like that Leaf Storm is the only attacking move he has on that jump bluff. So you know what, that Murkrow definitely proved me wrong. Was not expecting to see it be able to come back from that, especially after it spent the first couple of turns asleep and not really doing much. I think Quash really helped swing that favor into Junxi's side, was able to just at least go for like, hey, let me just try to make sure that my partner Pokemon can at least take other Pokemon out before it gets put to sleep.
Yeah, that Quash proving really detrimental because it actually bought a lot of time for Great Test to get those knockouts onto the Torkoal and the King Gambit before it got put to sleep, so it was probably a good move from Junxi's end. But at the same time, I feel like I don't know, that turn where it got the knockout onto the Torkoal, where it regrettably set up the sun for Junxi's team, it's like a double-edged sword. It was like, now what do you do going into this game too? Do you just release straight up Torkoal jump to immediate speed control, or like maybe get a setup or something like that, or do you take a completely different route?
Yeah, it's like really interesting because, you know, looking at that early game, I didn't think that Murkrow would be a Pokemon that you use here, but being able to have access to Quash and being able to use on everything but that King Gambit is actually a really nice option, right? Because then all of a sudden, for the most part, you're not worried about the speed boost for that Fluttermane. You're not worried about stuff like that because you're just like, okay, hey, thanks to Prankster, I'm going to be able to just say I'm going to be able to use it first, and like all of that happening. And so like even the jump bluff, you know, having to go last on there was able to like support that. I was able to support the Great Tusk. I think if you're Ray, I mean, the thing is, the Sleep Powder did so well for him, right? That it's kind of difficult to figure out, like, do you actually leave it behind now because of the fact that that drought does help that Great Tusk, or do you just kind of rely on it from the get-go?
I mean, that's a weird thing because even though we do have Whimsicott at home, aka Murkrow, which for some reason I really love this evolution of Murkrow now. It's become actually Whimsicott at home and not just a pure supporter with foul play. But at the same time, you know, Ray does have his own Great Tusk. I could see him go to full-on Sun route, but that's a double-edged sword in itself because if it pays off, boom, you get a lot of power, you get a lot of speed, you outspeeding all your opponent's Pokemon, you got good knockouts. If it doesn't work out, it's gonna go Junxi's way.
Yeah, and it feels sort of like when you're looking at the rest of Ray's team, it feels sort of Glass Cannon-y, is like just looking at that Chien-Pao, right? Like ideally, like sometimes you want to be able to bring your Ruinous Pokemon, but I think in this matchup it's still kind of a rough call because I think you're sort of leaning towards bringing in Jump Bluff Torkoal because at least you get, when you don't have a Mungus and Spore, at least you have access to something like Jump Bluff and Sleep Powder. But then there's that problem of, hey, the sun actually helps my opponent, but now also that Murkrow is wildly sort of a problem.
Here we go. Ray's gonna start this game with the Chien-Pao with the King Gambit, and it's gonna be Fluttermane and Murkrow for Junxi. Sword of Ruin going to weaken the defense points of all Pokemon in play, making that Fluttermane incredibly vulnerable to these two physical attackers.
Yeah, we might see the same thing that happened in like the last game where Fluttermane is going to be taken down almost immediately. I think here like, okay, so here's the thing about speed control, right? I think you should always have something like where you have like speed to your advantage. And I think Mirko is in a fine spot to be able to do something like that. You just, I think you have to be careful of the fact that, oh, I guess you're gonna try to break this last year, but you have to be careful of the fact that like, your Fluttermane is so susceptible right now because of all that defense drop. King Gambit and Qianpao is such an aggressive lead that it has sort of the ability to just kind of wreak havoc on everything here, but Qianpao gonna protect itself this turn.
Yeah, gonna maintain the sash, gonna maintain a sort of ruined defense drops. Fluttermane gonna protect as well, doesn't want to take an Iron Head or a Cat Cleave to the face. Murkrow here tried to go for the Braver to get that Focus Sash out of the way from the Qianpao. Not worried about setting Taylor right now since you theoretically have the speed control depending on the way he's trained. Ooh, but good read! And that's going to put the Murkrow down to 1 HP thanks to the Focus Sash of Ray's read on the Iron Head, predicting the Fluttermane would protect.
Yeah, so what's interesting here too is I always love turn 1 protect sometimes because it at least shows your opponent what you're kind of scared of, and like the Qianpao is able to preserve its Focus Sash here, so Mirko actually in a lot more precarious position than we saw last game. So yeah, Fluttermane didn't take any damage, but now you've burned that protect on this turn, so you're going to be forced to either attack or switch out, and you're in a really like kind of scary position. Mirko, I think on its last leg is going to set up the tailwind here, going to try to keep the speed control on Junxi's side, as Dazzling Gleam from that Fluttermane is going to connect with both, is going to be able to knock that Qianpao down to its Focus Sash, and does actually some considerable damage onto that King Gambit.
Yeah, even through that Assault Vest, that Life Orb coming in dividends right now for Junxi. Here's the Ice Spinner. I think this went to the Mirko to get the secure knockout. Maybe try to catch something in the switch in, and there, down it goes. Thankfully, there's no terrain in play, so that's not going to be a problem. Will we see an Iron Head from this King Gambit again? Yes, we do. It's a double knockout.
Yeah, that's kind of a really rough turn for Junxi. Sure, you were able to get up your Tailwind, but you're losing both of your Pokemon in sort of response to that. It's nice, sure, that you were able to get that Focus Sash down on the Qianpao, but that King Gambit now is just actually way more of a threat than like it was before, especially with just a Great Tusk and an Iron Bundle left.
Yeah, at least at the very least, Junxi will have the speed control for the rest of the game, but the problem being, I feel like Headlong Rush is super telegraphed as we're going to see this Fork Drive activate thanks to the booster energy on the Iron Bundle, going to multiply speed by 1.5 points. I think the problem right now is that I feel like Headlong Rush onto the King Gambit is extremely telegraphed, and that's just asking for Jumbo to switch in.
Yeah, it's just still kind of, you might not have a choice. I mean, you could technically go for Rock Slides if you really wanted to.
Icy Wind's just safer though.
I just no for the Great Tusk.
Yeah.
But it's just like it's kind of like a rough spot because you want to get the knockout on the King Gambit because regardless what happens, it's still like it's gonna be the threat on the field, right? But it's I think it's in a rough spot here, Junxi, because yeah, your Iron Bundle is gonna be able to at least like connect with an Icy Wind. You're going to pick up a knockout on Qianpao as long as it doesn't switch out, but I think that King Gambit is sort of the threat here, and I think you really want to be able to knock it out.
No switch outs.
Okay, so that's going to be just really good for him. He is going for that Terrastalize onto that Great Tusk. Is going to be that Steel Terrastalize, so doesn't have to worry about something like that. Leaf Storm for the jump up like game 1.
Or that Ice Spinner right now.
Yeah, so the Steel is offering a very nice defensive terror. Ooh, nice. Sucker Punch here failing for the Qianpao as Encore actually going for an Encore onto it. So that Sucker Punch is now officially locked in here for that Qianpao as Headlong Rush is going to connect into that King Gambit and is going to pick up that knockout. So that's one less threat that Junxi has to deal with on Ray's side.
And you know, the fact that King Gambit did not switch there either tells us a couple of things. Either he did not bring his Suncore or Torkoal to jump up and instead opted to Great Tusk and Fluttermane, or he's holding on to Torkoal for the very last minute.
Yeah, because we saw what happened last time with that Torkoal where you're like, hey, shoot, I forgot that it also boosts my opponent's Great Tusk. That is a problem. But yeah, it's kind of rough, I think, to also like let down that King Gambit. I think it's one of those like, maybe you just sack the Pokemon to get that switch in there. Qianpao though being put into a Sucker Punch Encore is also just an interesting thing that you have to sort of play around because now you know, okay, well, no, if I click into moves in there, it's going to like get I'm gonna get Sucker Punch. So being able to deal with something like on the side, it is gonna be that Fluttermane that we're gonna see.
Yeah, it's gonna be that shiny Fluttermane that Ray has found here, and I think something else you gotta be wary of if you're that Qianpao for Ray because you're locked into Sucker Punch. You have to be wary of who you're Sucker Punching because Great Tusk, if it goes for another Headlong Rush, it might take a lot more damage than it normally would like, especially because of that fighting resistance now gone for the Great Tusk. Or do you go after the Iron Bundle and make sure your opponent does not have speed control for the rest of the game?
Yeah, I mean, especially because you know, if you're right, you're also able to at least kind of try your best to wait out all of those tailwind turns because that Murkrow did go down, so there is no other pharmacy controlled except for that Iron Bundle's Icy Wind. So if you take care of that, then it's just sort of that Great Tusk, which does have the ability for spread moves, but it's just a matter of that damage output. And Ray actually going to be able to go for their own Terastallizing here. Is going to be on that Fluttermane. It's going to be a fairy type of Fluttermane here, so. Those dazzling gleams are going to be hurting a little bit more, or the Moonblast actually, so I have access to both of those fairy type moves here. Chien-Pao going for that Sucker Punch does so much damage to that Great Tusk thanks to those drops. And Iron Bundle going for the Icy Wind is going to be able to pick up the knockout on Chien-Pao. Knocks down the speed a little bit on that Fluttermane, but does a lot of damage into that Great Tusk before it heads out.
Yeah, no Sword of Ruin necessary now anymore. Headlong Rush going to go into the Fluttermane. That's a knockout very easily because of Fluttermane's super weak physical defense stat, and I'm now thinking this is Great Tusk, and I don't think it matters. I mean, it depends on what moves Iron Bundle goes for, but I think this might be going to game. No, this is going to be over.
Yeah, it would be.
This might be over. It is Great Tusk.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting there because, you know, even despite the fact that Junxi lost both of their Pokemon in that first sort of turn, the first two turns, and especially with the Fluttermane not really having much to show for it, he was able still to like carry this game with the Iron Bundle and with a Great Tusk. And so Iron Bundle going for the Freeze Dry into Great Tusk does so much damage, and then a close combat from Great Tusk is going to clean up this game, giving the set to Junxi 2-0 against Ray. So honestly, kind of wild set. Like, I was not expecting those turns to sort of go that way, especially after losing two of your Pokemon so early on in that match.
That's just what happens when you play Whimsicott at home, aka Murkrow. You know, sometimes you need to get the speed control to go in your favor. You know, that was probably a swift change of momentum. Look, just because you lose two Pokemon in your first turn, if you get the perfect setup, it won't matter.
Yeah, and it's actually really nice to be able to see that he was able to use a Tailwind earlier on versus game one, where he kind of was waffling around. I didn't think we saw it until like the last two turns versus now, where like where Murkrow was like, you know what, I'm heading out. I might as well just set up the speed control and then just let them do the rest. And kind of just to show you how cool it is to have sort of this Pokemon like next to each other, that no matter what, as long as you have the speed on your side, you are able to make a comeback.
Yeah, all you need is speed. That's why we have Murkrow here. His evolution is very nice. It was good enough to take down probably one of the more popular teams in this meta game, that Sun Control team. And just impressive from Junxi to bring out that team. I also forgot to mention that Chiyu could have been also very dangerous if Torkoal was ever in play, but thankfully it was not.
Yeah. Also, I hope one day we get to see that Dragapult with a power herb. I just want to see it. I'm not gonna go on my Switch and like do it myself. I would love to see someone do that. I'm just like,
oh my god! Imagine we had the caster battle soon just so we could do that.
Yeah. No, I haven't touched Scotland Battle in a very long time. I'm on. Okay, I got suckered into Tears of the Kingdom, so I'm on that grind, and I have like this really bad habit of I'm gonna walk and I see something and I just go that way. So I'm not expecting to finish that game for at least 2 weeks.
Yeah, but while we wait for our results to file up here, I would like to encourage you guys to stay tuned for round number 3 coming soon. Gym Challenge 11. We have a lot of faces coming in here. You know, the big 3: Gavin, Gio, and Alberto. And as well as a lot of SoCal's finest people here.
There's a lot more people, I think, here than that, because Ryan Haig is also here today. You know, he's definitely been making name. He's definitely been on. If you guys like, you know, don't recognize that too, maybe go watch some of the older official streams that are happening. There's like a lot of old names that have been coming back, so most of you who are in SoCal will know them. If you're not already here, you will probably recognize most of them. So, but we love seeing old and new faces alike. That's what I love about Pokemon, and I love about both VGC and TCG, right? As long as you love Pokemon and you have either a Switch and are able to get a team, or you have your decks, you're more than welcome to come to these events. We're holding them every 2 weeks, so you know, it's great practice if you're like you're ready to take yourself off of ranked ladder and you're ready to come in person and be like, yeah, I'm ready for best of 3 open team sheets. I love open team sheets so much. It's best thing to happen to VGC. You can quote me on that. But if you're ready and you're in the area, we have these every 2 weeks. You're more than welcome to come in. Make sure you registered online. That's all I ask. That's all I ask of you guys. But that's it for us for right now. We'll see you in round 3. We're almost halfway there. Almost.